Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Listening Lounge. My name is Nick Day and I'm CEO of JGA Recruitment Group, and we're specialist payroll and HR recruiters. Now, they say the quieter we are, the more we hear, and that listening is the secret to discovering the greatest of stories. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's fantastic guest. Today, I'm joined by Nebel Crowhurst, who is Chief People Officer at Reward Gateway. Now, Nebel has more than 15 years' experience supporting the people agenda within various organisations, including Virgin and River Island. And she has extensive experience delivering great employee experiences to create workplaces that enable employees to thrive. I wonder if you could just bring to life a little bit more about why we should be considering financial well-being now as being a critical component of employee wellness in the workplace.
Yeah, for sure. So I think for some time now, we've talked about the importance of overall well-being in organisations, but perhaps not emphasised financial well-being. But the reality is, if we don't focus on financial well-being, given where we're at in terms of the cost of living crisis and the challenges that we're all facing on a day-to-day basis with our money not stretching as far as it has done in the past, if we don't focus on financial well-being, we're actually having a direct impact on people's mental health and mental well-being, and no doubt actually holistic health, so physical health and overall emotional health. So organisations that have got a well-being focus, that's a great starting point, but really emphasising the financial well-being piece is really important. And when we look at our trends report and the data that we've got from that, we were able to see that 70% of employees cited that they had long-term mental health impacts from the cost of living reports. That's a really high number of people. And so we know that we've got to make some level of difference in the way in which we're supporting people and enabling them to make their money go as far as possible to reduce some of that stress and that mental impact.
Fantastic. In the world of payroll in particular, there's lots and lots of noise and promotion about on-demand pay or earned access to pay and things like that. And it's kind of seen as being a panacea, as being the thing that we need to do to improve financial wellness. But of course, it's much broader than that as a subject area. So without talking about on-demand pay as much and how that is the only thing we can do to improve financial wellness, as the cost of living crisis does continue, what are some of the other things that payroll professionals could start to think about to improve financial wellness, things they can do for their employees on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think you need to think a bit creatively. And sometimes you can come up with things internally that really don't cost a great deal to be able to put in place to support people. Sometimes it might take a small amount of investment. I think what's really important is listening to your people in the organisation to understand what's going to help them. Sometimes we can run away with ourselves in HR and think we know all the answers and just throw things out at people and think that that's going to be exactly what they need, and we don't necessarily take the time to go out to our people in our organisations and say what do you want, what do you need, and how is that going to help you best. And we know that without focusing on this, people's work is going to be impacted. So you might be able to say some really low cost, simple solutions might be leaning on knowledge that you've already got in your organisation. We've all got financial expertise in our businesses. And whilst it might take a bit of time to throw at a solution, it doesn't necessarily need to take budget and cost. So leaning on financial knowledge in your business to perhaps do some knowledge sharing, some simple lunch and learn type offerings so that people can understand a bit more about basic financial skills, doesn't cost a lot and just takes a bit of time to put in place. So your kind of low cost, simple solutions to get started, I think is a good place to be. What you can also do is sometimes lean on already established partnerships. So for example, if you have got an outsourced payroll provider, do they offer support and guidance, and perhaps can they run some short sessions on information that's financial that employees might benefit from? Again, just takes a bit of time, probably doesn't take a great deal of budget to be able to do that. And so looking at where you've got support from already established partnerships, third-party providers that might be able to do a little bit more to support your employees could be really helpful. From a Reward Gateway perspective specifically, one of the things that we do to support organisations is put in place discounting offerings. So for a small investment for an organization, and when I say small, I guess small in comparison to perhaps doing a wholesale pay increase at the rate of inflation, what you could put in place is a discounting platform, so that employees can have discounts on their day-to-day spending, so their groceries and the things that they need regularly, right the way through to things that they might have as treats, sort of clothes and holidays and all those kind of things. But a discounting platform can make a huge difference. And organisations that have employees that utilise our platform, people save on average around £500 a year on some of the things that they're able to utilise the discounting on. So, there's a variety of options. It may well be borrowing options, so people can have a way in which they've got a mechanism to borrow a small amount of money in those real moments of need. The washing machine breaks, the boiler breaks, you haven't got that spare cash to be able to pay for something quickly. So there are organisations that you can partner with as a business to have those borrowing options in place to take that pressure away from people. But essentially, it's really understanding what is the landscape of your workforce, what do your people truly need, what's going to make a difference to them. Is it education, is it access to cash, is it discounting, and then creating a portfolio of things that are going to help people the most, given where they're at in the context of your business.
I was quite interested to hear the stat you gave, which is the average employee sort of saves £500 over the course of a year on groceries and discounts that you guys provide. Actually, if you've got a payroll department that's payrolling 1,000 employees, the economy of scale then, it's $500,000, it soon adds up. And it says sometimes the smaller things that payroll professionals can get involved in or implement or bring in-house, work with your HR teams to look at potential solutions, actually the impact of that can be significant. And I talk a lot about turning payroll into a profit center. It can be profitable. I know we pay a lot of money out, but if we do the right things, spot the right trends, actually it can have a huge impact on employee retention and the cost of that, employee attraction and the cost of that, and things like that £500 saving and how that can really magnify in terms of its success. In some of the analysis and some of the studies you've been running, with the cost of living crisis continuing, how have you seen it impact and affect employees?
Yeah, so one of the things that came out of the report, we've talked about the impact on kind of long-term mental health, but also people calling out how that's affecting their work. So 57% of people said that the cost of living crisis is regularly impacting their ability to do a good job and impacting their work. So if you then think about that as productivity in your organisations, if you've got a workforce of people that their minds are distracted by the stresses of life and what's going on from a cost of living perspective, that is going to have an impact on productivity in your organisation. So again, it goes back to, if you invest in supporting people with how they are able to manage their money more effectively, you're in turn taking away some of that stress, in turn reducing the impact on negative productivity and then the performance of the business. So it all correlates. So you kind of need to think smart about where you put your efforts and investments to know that you're going to have that impact on how people are feeling in the workplace. So I think it's a really important space for us to be focusing on in HR and more broadly in organisations.
So I'm going to ask you a question, because your background is obviously embedded in the world of HR at a senior level. You now work, with Raw Gateway, you're fully immersed now in the world of benefits. We talked a little bit about how the cost of living crisis is impacting employees. But with your expertise and your knowledge of working with payroll leaders, either reporting into you or in other previous businesses as well, if there was a payroll leader listening to this, what kind of things could they do if they came to someone like yourself as an HR leader or CEO to start moving the needle in the right direction to supporting employees? What are the kind of questions they can be raising? How can they approach their senior HR leadership teams to try and improve this experience for employees?
Yeah, I guess when you start to think about things kind of more commercially in terms of business impact, the area that you can really lean into to know that you're having a direct correlation between kind of cost impacts and bottom line of the business is retention of your people across the organisation. So if you've got a high labour turnover, that's costing you a fortune. Yeah. And there's lots of evidence out there that demonstrates the kind of average cost of turnover per percentage of employee. It does vary. So if you look into that research, you'll see different scales of percentage that people would suggest. My recommendation there is, if you're able to do a piece of short analysis internally to work out what your general cost of labour turnover is by percentage, it's well worth doing. because when you roll that up and you look at your labour turnover and then you turn that into cash, it's massive. It can roll into the millions.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking savvy and you look more broadly and say, okay, we can demonstrate that our labour turnover is at 18%, and what that translates into is X amount of £1 million off the bottom line. If the things that we deliver support people more effectively and reduce that labour turnover, we can have an impact on sort of saving costs. I think CFOs, CEOs, COOs, they're going to stand up and listen to that. They're going to pay attention, because essentially what they're looking for is the financial business performance metrics that are really, really important for business success. So that would absolutely be a starting point. What do those labour turnover figures look like, and how can we reduce those to then reduce cost across the business?
Absolutely love that response, Nebel, particularly because the world of payroll now, with automation coming in more and more, it's moving towards being a more of a strategic function anyway. You've given a great example of how you can use the data they've got at their fingertips, which is so much, and use that strategically to support broader organizational goals in an intelligent way that saves money. I know as a recruiter that talent is expensive. I know it actually costs our business to find the talent we place for organizations, but also because of the bills that we invoice to make our commercial enterprise work, that it's expensive to find good talent as well. So if you can retain that talent, it just makes good commercial sense. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of The Listening Lounge. My name is Nick Day, and remember, every great conversation starts with great listening. Till next time.